The kingdom of Eldoria was famous for its golden towers, sparkling rivers, and strong walls. It had stood for hundreds of years, ruled by wise kings and queens who cared for their people. But peace in Eldoria was about to be shattered in a way no one could have imagined. Camilla had always been ambitious. She was the niece of the late Queen Isabella, and though she had no claim to the throne, she had grown up in the royal court, watching every secret, every meeting, and every plan. She was clever, patient, and always careful to hide her true intentions. Many believed Camilla was kind and loyal, but beneath her gentle smile, a storm was forming. The royal guard had always protected the king, the queen, and the royal assets. Their loyalty was unquestioned, and their authority was absolute. They were the sword and shield of Eldoria, feared by enemies and respected by citizens. But even the royal guard had rules, and Camilla knew exactly how to bend them to her advantage. One morning, the court buzzed with unusual excitement. News had spread that Camilla had requested a private meeting with King Alaric. The king was young and inexperienced, and many courtiers whispered about Camilla's influence over him. She arrived dressed in a deep green gown, her hair braided neatly, and her eyes sharp as ever. The king looked nervous as she entered the private chamber. "Your Majesty," she said with a soft bow, "I have a plan that will strengthen Eldoria and secure your reign forever." King Alaric leaned back in his chair, unsure if he should trust her. "Camilla, your advice is always valuable, but this plan you speak of, what does it involve?" Camilla smiled. "It involves reorganizing the royal assets. Many are hidden, unaccounted for, or wasted. With my guidance, we can gather them all and use them to benefit the kingdom." At first, the king thought she meant something positive. After all, Eldoria's treasury had suffered under previous rulers. But Camilla's words were carefully chosen. She did not mention that some of the assets she planned to seize were under the direct protection of the royal guard. By the next week, Camilla had begun her work. She visited every estate, every vault, and every warehouse connected to the crown. She carried official papers, signed by King Alaric himself, that allowed her to claim property and treasures. Some guards questioned her, but her calm demeanor and the king's signature left them uncertain. Captain Roland, the leader of the royal guard, was not easily fooled. He had served Eldoria faithfully for over 30 years. He knew the rules, and he knew when they were being broken. When he heard that Camilla had claimed the royal stables, the treasury, and even parts of the castle grounds, he confronted her. "Camilla, what you are doing is beyond your authority," Roland said, his voice steady but firm. "These assets belong to the crown, and the royal guard is sworn to protect them. You cannot take them without proper procedure." Camilla turned to him, her green eyes calm but piercing. "Captain Roland, I act under the king's orders. Every move I make has his approval. If you interfere, you will be seen as disloyal to Eldoria itself." Roland frowned. He had always believed in loyalty, but this loyalty now seemed complicated. Could he question the king's command? Could he confront Camilla without risking his position? His mind raced as he considered the consequences. By the end of the month, Camilla had seized nearly all the royal assets. The stables were filled with her own horses. The treasury had been reorganized under her control, and even the jewels in the crown were placed in vaults she personally oversaw. Citizens whispered in the streets, confused and fearful. How could someone take so much from the king and still remain in the palace? Even within the court, opinions were divided. Some admired Camilla's skill and courage, believing she was helping the king rule better. Others feared her growing power, sensing that her ambitions might not end with the assets. Captain Roland, however, was determined to act. He knew that Camilla had overstepped, and he also knew that if he did nothing, Eldoria's traditions and protections would be lost forever. Roland called a secret meeting with the other senior guards. In a dimly lit hall beneath the castle, he laid out his plan. "Camilla has taken everything that does not belong to her," he said, "but she has broken the law. The royal guard cannot allow this. We must act, but carefully. If we confront her openly, she may turn the king against us." One of the guards, a young man named Tomas, spoke up. "But Captain, She has the king's papers. How can we argue against that? Roland's eyes narrowed. Loyalty is not blind obedience. If the king does not understand the truth, we will have to show it to him. The kingdom's safety is more important than fear of a single person. Meanwhile, Camilla was unaware of the plotting beneath her. She continued her work, confident and proud. Each day, her power grew. Courtiers who had once whispered against her now bowed respectfully. Even some guards who were loyal to the crown began to fear her authority. Camilla's most daring move came when she announced a new decree. All remaining royal lands and estates would now be under her supervision. She claimed this would improve efficiency and prevent waste, but in truth, it solidified her control over Eldoria's wealth. The citizens of Eldoria were nervous. Markets slowed, merchants whispered, and some families found themselves unable to access lands that had belonged to them for generations. The kingdom's harmony, carefully built over centuries, was beginning to tremble. Captain Roland decided it was time to act. He could no longer wait for the king to realize the danger. Gathering his most trusted guards, he prepared a formal complaint, detailing Camilla's unlawful seizure of royal assets. Every fact was documented, every signature accounted for. They knew this move would be dangerous, but they also knew it was necessary. On the morning of the confrontation, Camilla entered the hall, smiling as always. She did not suspect that the royal guard had united against her. Roland stepped forward, holding the documents with a steady hand. "Camilla," he said, "the royal guard cannot allow your actions to continue. You have seized royal property without proper authority. This is not loyalty. This is a violation of the kingdom's laws and traditions." Camilla's smile did not falter. "Captain Roland, you speak as though I am the enemy. I serve the king. Every action I take is for Eldoria's benefit." Roland held the papers higher. "The king may have signed them, but he was unaware of your full intentions. We have proof that your actions have placed the kingdom at risk. You must return all assets immediately or face the consequences of the royal guard's judgment." For a moment, the room was silent. Camilla's eyes flicked toward the king, who stood frozen, unsure what to do. She realized that for the first time, someone was challenging her openly, and that challenged the power she had worked so long to build. This was the beginning of a battle for Eldoria. Not a battle with swords or armies, but a battle of wits, courage, and loyalty. Camilla had seized almost everything, but the royal guard was determined to stop her before she could take it all. The kingdom held its breath, waiting to see who would emerge victorious in the quiet of the castle. Captain Roland whispered to his team, "Today, we fight not just for the assets, but for the honor of Eldoria itself." Outside, the citizens watched from their windows and streets. Rumors flew like wildfire. Some cheered for Camilla, believing she was clever and strong. Others whispered that the kingdom's safety rested in the hands of the royal guard. No one knew how this conflict would end. But one thing was certain: Eldoria would never be the same again. Camilla's ambition had shaken the foundation of the kingdom, and the royal guard was ready to respond. The battle for the crown's assets and for the soul of Eldoria was only just beginning. The morning sun rose over Eldoria, casting golden light on the castle towers. Inside, tension filled the air. Camilla, as always, moved gracefully through the hallways, her mind sharp and focused. She had faced challenges before, but the royal guard's open defiance was something new. She could sense the shift in power, yet she refused to show any sign of fear. In the council room, Captain Roland and his trusted guards gathered quietly. The papers they had prepared detailed every action Camilla had taken. It was not just a matter of property. Her influence over the king threatened the kingdom itself. Roland knew they had to act carefully. One wrong move could turn public opinion against them, or worse, provoke the king into defending Camilla. Tomas, the youngest guard, spoke first. "Captain, if we act now, we could face great danger. Camilla has the king's support and appearance, and the people are uncertain whom to trust." Roland nodded. "I understand, Tomas, but our duty is clear. We protect the crown, not just the king's wishes. If the king is misled, we must guide him to the truth." Meanwhile, Camilla met with some of the court's advisors. She had already won over many with her charm and intelligence. "Eldoria must become stronger," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We cannot waste resources. Every asset, every piece of land must serve a purpose." Those who questioned this only delay progress. The advisors nodded cautiously, afraid of contradicting her. Camilla had a talent for turning doubt into fear and fear into obedience. Even those who secretly disagreed found themselves silenced by her calm authority. Back in the guard room, Roland made his plan. They would approach the king together, present the evidence, and demand Camilla return the royal assets. It would not be easy. Camilla was clever, and she had prepared for every possible objection. The guards moved through the castle quietly, each step measured and careful. They entered the king's chambers, where Alaric sat at his desk, looking over reports. Camilla was already there, reviewing her plans, a stack of documents in front of her. "Your Majesty," Roland began, his voice steady, "we must speak with you about Camilla's actions. The kingdom's safety and the crown's property are at risk. We have evidence that she has overstepped her authority." Camilla looked up, her eyes bright with calm confidence. "Captain Roland, I assure you, every move I make has the king's approval. Eldoria is stronger because of these actions." King Alaric shifted uncomfortably. He had trusted Camilla, but now he saw the seriousness in Roland's expression. "What is the evidence?" he asked quietly. Roland laid out the documents, showing every seizure, every claim, and every vault that had been placed under Camilla's control. "Your Majesty, these are not just assets. They are symbols of your authority, protected by the royal guard. Camilla has taken them for herself, and if we do not act, the kingdom will suffer." The king frowned, confusion mixing with concern. "I did sign these papers," he admitted, "but I trusted her guidance. I did not realize the full extent of her actions." Camilla stood calmly, but inside, her mind raced. She had planned for challenges, but she had underestimated the unity of the royal guard. She needed a strategy to maintain control without appearing defiant. "Your Majesty," she said softly, "everything I have done was for Eldoria. If the royal guard questions me, they question your judgment. I ask that you trust my guidance. Together, we can secure the kingdom's future." The king looked between Camilla and Roland, torn between loyalty to the person he trusted most and the undeniable facts before him. Roland spoke again. "Sire, this is not a matter of personal opinion. It is a matter of law and tradition. The royal guard swears to protect the kingdom, and we cannot allow private control over the crown's assets." A silence fell in the chamber. The king finally stood, his young face serious. "Camilla, you have overstepped. You must return all assets to the crown immediately. I will oversee the process with the royal guard." Camilla's lips curved into a controlled smile. "Your Majesty, I will follow your wishes," she said, but inside, she knew this battle was far from over. She would not surrender so easily. The next days were tense. Camilla reluctantly began returning some assets, but she did so with careful calculation. Every move was deliberate, leaving her influence intact. She retained control over certain key lands and resources, knowing that any rash action by the guards could provoke unrest. The royal guard worked tirelessly to reclaim the kingdom's property. They organized inventories, secured vaults, and ensured that no asset remained under private control. The citizens watched closely, some cheering the guards, others still fascinated by Camilla's daring. In secret, Camilla devised new plans. She began meeting with allies outside the court, forming networks of support among merchants and minor nobles. Her aim was not just to control assets, but to shape the kingdom's future according to her vision. Every conversation, every gesture, was part of a larger design that only she fully understood. Captain Roland remained vigilant. He sensed the danger, not just in Camilla's ambition, but in the people she had influenced. "We cannot underestimate her," he told his guards one evening. "She may comply outwardly, but her mind is always working. Watch for signs and report anything unusual immediately." Meanwhile, Camilla used her charm to sway public opinion. She made appearances in the town square, visited markets, and spoke kindly to citizens. Many began to see her as a protector and innovator, even as the royal guard worked behind the scenes to secure the assets. The kingdom was now divided between admiration for Camilla and loyalty to tradition. One night, Roland received a secret message from a trusted source in the royal treasury. Certain vaults had been manipulated, and some treasures had disappeared. It was not enough to prove wrongdoing yet, but it suggested Camilla had retained hidden control. Roland realized the conflict was far from over. Camilla had underestimated the guards' determination, but they had also underestimated her cunning. The stage was set for a struggle that went beyond documents and decrees. It was a battle of influence, strategy, and loyalty. Eldoria itself hung in balance, and every citizen, every courtier, every guard would be affected. Camilla returned to her private chambers, reviewing her notes and strategies. She had faced opposition before, but the royal guard was more organized than she expected. She smiled faintly, enjoying the challenge. If they want a war of wits, she whispered to herself, then I will give them one. At the same time, Captain Roland gathered his team for a midnight meeting. Maps were laid out, documents reviewed, and plans discussed. They had regained control of most assets, but Camilla's influence remained strong. Every decision had to be calculated. The kingdom's future depended on their wisdom, courage, and unity. The coming days promised more tension. Camilla's ambition and the royal guard's loyalty were now on a collision course. Neither side could back down, and neither would surrender easily. Eldoria, once peaceful and orderly, now faced uncertainty, intrigue, and a battle that would test every heart and mind within its walls. The first stage of the struggle had ended, but the real challenge was just beginning. Camilla was still powerful, still clever, and still dangerous. The royal guard had proven their authority, but they knew that this was only a temporary victory. A storm was coming, and when it arrived, Eldoria would see courage, cunning, and loyalty tested like never before. Eldoria had never felt so restless. The streets were alive with whispers of Camilla's cleverness and the royal guard's courage. Citizens debated daily whether she was a savior or a threat. Even merchants in the marketplace felt the tension, quietly watching the castle from their shops. The kingdom was calm on the surface, but underneath, a battle of influence was growing stronger with each passing day. Camilla sat in her chambers, reviewing reports from her secret allies. She had reached out to minor nobles and influential merchants in distant towns. Through these connections, she had gained access to resources and information that the royal guard could not easily monitor. Camilla's plan was no longer just about assets. It was about shaping Eldoria's power structure to her favor. She smiled faintly as she read a message from one of her contacts. A shipment of supplies meant for the castle had been diverted under her orders. The royal guard would notice eventually, but by then, she would have already strengthened her position in another part of the kingdom. Camilla enjoyed this dance of strategy and patience. Every move was deliberate, every step calculated. Meanwhile, Captain Roland and his team remained vigilant. They had regained control over most of the royal assets, but they knew that Camilla's influence was far from broken. She had allies outside the castle walls who could act when needed. Roland called a meeting with his senior guards in a quiet chamber beneath the castle. Away from prying eyes, Camilla is clever and patient, Roland said, spreading a map of Eldoria across the table. We have control of the central assets, but she has resources we cannot see. She may strike in ways we cannot predict. Our duty now is not just to recover property, but to protect the kingdom from hidden threats. Tomas, still young but brave, asked, Captain, how do we fight someone who has the king's influence and secret allies? She seems unstoppable. Roland looked at him calmly. We fight with what we have: truth, loyalty, and unity. Camilla can plan and scheme, but the royal guard has honor and determination. We will watch closely, and we will act when the moment is right, as the royal guard prepared. Camilla made her first bold move. She invited a group of nobles to the castle under the guise of discussing reforms for Eldoria. In reality, she intended to build alliances, securing their loyalty to her plans. The nobles arrived cautiously, curious about her reputation and daring actions. Camilla greeted each one with warmth, her charm precise and effective. "Eldoria must grow stronger," she said. "We cannot rely on old customs alone. Progress requires strategy, vision, and cooperation. Together, we can shape the future of this kingdom." The nobles listened intently, impressed by her confidence and the clarity of her ideas. Some had been skeptical, but her words inspired them. They left the meeting believing that supporting Camilla was the path to Eldoria's prosperity. The royal guard, however, did not underestimate her. Roland had stationed trusted members in key areas of the castle to monitor every meeting and movement. They recorded evidence and observed her plans carefully. Each time Camilla made a move, the guards were prepared to counter it. Despite this, Camilla's cleverness kept her ahead. She knew the castle well, the routines of the guards, and the habits of the king. She used this knowledge to make her actions subtle yet effective. A shipment here, a reallocation of resources there, small moves that slowly increased her influence without directly breaking the king's orders. One evening, Camilla approached the king privately. "Your Majesty," she said softly, "some of the assets returned to the crown need better management. If we reorganize them carefully, we can prevent waste and improve efficiency. I am prepared to oversee this personally." King Alaric hesitated. He trusted Camilla, but he also valued the Royal Guard's counsel. "Camilla, you must remember that the Royal Guard is responsible for the kingdom's safety and assets. Any plan must involve them." Camilla's eyes gleamed with subtle determination. "I understand, sire, and I will cooperate. But some decisions require quick action. I hope you trust me to make these judgments for the good of Eldoria." The king nodded slowly, unsure but willing to trust her skill. He did not yet realize that her cooperation was only a part of a larger plan. Camilla left the chamber with quiet satisfaction, already thinking several steps ahead. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A neighboring kingdom, Carveth, sent envoys to Eldoria, requesting a meeting about trade and border agreements. The royal guard viewed this as a serious matter. Foreign relations could be dangerous if handled improperly. Roland immediately began preparing the necessary security measures. Camilla, however, saw opportunity. She approached the envoys herself, presenting Eldoria as strong, organized, and forward-thinking. She spoke with confidence, subtly highlighting her own role in managing the kingdom's assets and strategy. The envoys were impressed, believing her influence reflected the king's power. Roland observed silently from a distance. He realized that Camilla was gaining respect beyond Eldoria's walls. Her charm and intelligence allowed her to influence outsiders, while maintaining the appearance of loyalty to the king. The royal guard had to act carefully. Any misstep could create political problems back in the castle. Whispers of Camilla's growing power began to spread among the court. Some advisors admired her ingenuity, while others feared the concentration of influence in her hands. Roland knew he had to maintain control, but he also understood that he could not confront her directly without exposing the kingdom to further risk. Tomas approached Roland late one night. "Captain, she seems untouchable. Every time we recover an asset, she finds a way to remain influential. How do we stop someone like that?" Roland looked at him steadily. "We do not stop her with force. We stop her with patience, evidence, and strategy. Camilla may be clever, but we have the truth on our side. We must wait for the right moment to act decisively." Meanwhile, Camilla continued to expand her network. She secretly met with merchants and minor nobles outside the castle, ensuring they understood her vision for Eldoria. She promised prosperity, fairness, and opportunity, but in return, they were expected to follow her guidance quietly. By the end of the week, she had established a web of influence that stretched across the kingdom. Captain Roland realized the stakes had grown higher than ever. Camilla's clever moves were not just about assets, they were about loyalty, perception, and control. If she gained too much influence, the balance of power in Eldoria could shift permanently. Roland called a full meeting of the royal guard. "We have regained most of the crown's assets," he said, "but Camilla is far from defeated. She has allies, resources, and influence. We must remain vigilant, gather intelligence, and protect the kingdom at every level. Eldoria's safety depends on our wisdom and unity." The guards nodded, their determination renewed. They had faced many challenges before, but this was unlike any they had encountered. Camilla's intelligence and strategy made her a formidable opponent, yet they were committed to defending the crown and the kingdom's traditions outside. The citizens of Eldoria sensed the tension, but did not yet understand its full scope. Camilla's charm continued to win admiration, while the royal guard worked quietly to safeguard the kingdom. The kingdom stood at a crossroads. Every decision, every alliance, and every action would determine Eldoria's future. Camilla, in her private chambers, looked over the map of the kingdom, marking the locations of her allies and assets. She whispered to herself, "They may recover some assets, but they cannot recover influence. That is mine to shape." At the same time, Captain Roland reviewed reports from the guards. Every shipment, every meeting, and every unusual activity was carefully recorded. He knew that Camilla was planning her next move, and he was determined to be ready. The first stage of confrontation had ended, but the second stage was beginning. Camilla's network, strategy, and influence made her more dangerous than ever, while the royal guard's vigilance, courage, and loyalty ensured that they would not allow her ambitions to threaten the kingdom. The battle for Eldoria was now not just about assets. It was about power, influence, and the very future of the kingdom. Camilla and the royal guard were on a collision course, and neither could predict who would emerge victorious. As the sun set over the golden towers of Eldoria, both sides prepared for the days ahead. Camilla's ambition and the royal guard's loyalty would soon test the kingdom in ways no one could have imagined. The struggle for control, respect, and the heart of Eldoria was only beginning, and every citizen, noble, and guard would be part of its story. The kingdom of Eldoria was restless. Camilla's influence had spread quietly but steadily, touching the lives of merchants, nobles, and even citizens far from the castle. She had remained careful, always respectful in public, but her plans were reaching a point where the royal guard could no longer ignore them. Captain Roland knew that the next days could decide the kingdom's future. Camilla walked through the castle corridors with her usual poise, her mind calculating every move. She had retained control over certain key estates and vaults, and her allies were ready to act whenever necessary. Every meeting she arranged, every word she spoke, strengthened her power without breaking the appearance of loyalty. She was patient, knowing that a single mistake could undo everything she had built. Meanwhile, Captain Roland called the royal guard together. "Camilla is clever and cautious," he said, spreading maps and reports across the table. "Her influence grows with each passing day. We have regained most of the crown's assets, but her secret networks remain active. We must anticipate her moves and protect the kingdom from hidden threats." Tomas, the young guard, frowned. "Captain, she seems untouchable. Every time we plan something, she finds a way to stay one step ahead. How can we stop someone like that?" Roland's expression was calm but serious. "We stop her not with force, but with strategy, patience, and evidence. Camilla is brilliant, but the kingdom's laws, traditions, and people are stronger than one person. We must act at the right time, and when we do, there will be no question of her intentions." That evening, Camilla hosted another meeting, this time with merchants who controlled trade routes across Eldoria. She spoke with confidence, presenting plans for improving commerce and securing resources for the kingdom. Her words were persuasive, inspiring trust and loyalty. Many merchants agreed to support her quietly, believing that she was guiding Eldoria toward prosperity. The royal guard observed from a distance, taking careful notes. Roland knew that Camilla's influence over commerce could challenge the kingdom's stability. If left unchecked, he and his guards had to find a way to counteract her network without causing panic among the citizens. The next morning, Camilla approached the king with another suggestion. "Your Majesty, I have identified opportunities to improve efficiency in the treasury and estates. With your permission, I could reorganize the remaining assets to maximize benefits for Eldoria." King Alaric hesitated. He respected Camilla's intelligence, but he also valued the royal guard's guidance. Camilla, any plan must involve the royal guard. They are sworn to protect the kingdom and its property. Camilla's eyes gleam with determination. I understand, sire, and I will cooperate fully. But some actions require quick decisions. I hope you trust me to act wisely for the good of Eldoria. Alaric nodded, still uncertain but willing to rely on her skill. He did not realize that this cooperation was part of Camilla's larger strategy. In the following days, tension grew within the castle. Camilla's allies outside the walls acted quietly, diverting resources and gathering information. She moved carefully, making subtle adjustments to her holdings while appearing compliant to the king and the royal guard. Her influence was spreading, but she had not yet crossed the line that would force open conflict. Captain Roland knew it was only a matter of time before that line was crossed. He reviewed intelligence reports from the guards stationed throughout the kingdom. Some shipments had been rerouted, and certain estates showed signs of Camilla's interference. She is testing our limits, Roland said, and she will push further if we do not respond decisively. Tomas asked, Captain, what is our plan? How do we confront her without creating chaos? Roland looked at the young guard seriously. We confront her with proof, not accusations. We gather evidence of every action that violates the kingdom's laws or traditions. When the time comes, we present the facts clearly, and the kingdom will understand why her influence cannot continue unchecked. Camilla, unaware of the royal guard's growing preparations, felt confident. She had anticipated opposition, but she believed her charm and intelligence could overcome any challenge. Each day, she expanded her web of influence, strengthening her position and gathering loyal supporters. She was patient and deliberate, knowing that the final move would require precision. One night, she received a message from an ally in a distant town. A shipment meant for the castle had been intercepted, and the royal guard was aware of her actions. Camilla smiled faintly. She had expected this, and it only meant that the game was reaching its next stage. Let them watch, she whispered to herself. I am always 3 steps ahead. The royal guard prepared for confrontation. They organized teams to monitor Camilla's movements and verify her control over the remaining assets. Roland knew that direct conflict could provoke resistance among her allies, so patience and strategy were essential. The kingdom's safety depended on careful action rather than rash decisions. Camilla, confident in her control, continued to meet with merchants, nobles, and advisors. She presented herself as a protector of Eldoria, a loyal servant working for the kingdom's prosperity. Few realized that her actions were also designed to strengthen her personal influence and secure key resources under her command. One morning, a group of minor nobles approached the king. They were concerned about Camilla's growing power and her influence over trade and assets. Your Majesty, one said, we fear that Camilla's actions may affect the stability of the kingdom. We ask that the royal guard investigate and ensure the crown's property remains secure. King Alaric listened carefully. He had trusted Camilla, but the voices of his advisors and the royal guard carried weight. Roland presented his evidence, showing the extent of Camilla's influence and her secret networks. The king's expression grew serious as he realized the potential danger. Camilla, summoned to the council chamber, maintained her calm demeanor. Your Majesty, she said softly, everything I have done is for Eldoria. I have acted to strengthen the kingdom and ensure its prosperity. If the royal guard has concerns, I will cooperate fully. Roland stepped forward. Sire, Camilla has exceeded her authority. She controls assets and resources without proper oversight, and her network reaches beyond the castle. The kingdom's safety requires that we take action now to prevent further influence over the crown's property. The king looked torn, but he finally nodded. Camilla, you will return the remaining assets immediately and cooperate fully with the royal guard. Any further actions without their oversight will not be tolerated. Camilla's eyes remained calm, but her mind raced. She had expected this challenge and had prepared for it. Of course, Your Majesty, she said, hiding the tension in her voice. I will comply. But I hope you understand that some flexibility may be needed to maintain efficiency. The next days were critical. Camilla returned certain assets to the crown, but kept subtle control over key properties. She continued to expand her influence through secret alliances, while the royal guard remained vigilant. Every movement was observed, every plan analyzed, and every decision carefully considered. The citizens of Eldoria watched with growing curiosity. Camilla's charm and intelligence earned admiration, while the royal guard's dedication inspired respect. The kingdom was divided, unsure of whom to support, but everyone sensed that a decisive moment was approaching. Captain Roland gathered his senior guards late one evening. "Camilla is clever, but she cannot hide her intentions forever," he said. "We must remain patient, gather evidence, and ensure that when the time comes, we act decisively. Eldoria depends on our wisdom, courage, and unity." Tomas nodded. "Captain, it feels like a storm is coming. Can we handle it?" Roland smiled slightly. "We will handle it because we must. Our duty is to protect the kingdom, its people, and the crown. Camilla may be brilliant, but the royal guard is determined. We will not fail." As night fell over Eldoria, the kingdom seemed peaceful. Yet tension filled every corner of the castle and city. Camilla prepared her next moves, confident in her influence and alliances. The royal guard prepared theirs, determined to protect the kingdom from hidden danger. The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation. Camilla's ambition and intelligence had brought her close to complete influence. But the royal guard's vigilance, courage, and loyalty ensured that Eldoria's heart remained protected. Both sides knew that the coming days would test their strategy, patience, and resolve. The kingdom waited, holding its breath. Camilla's brilliance faced the royal guard's honor, and the outcome would shape Eldoria's future for generations. The sun rose over Eldoria, painting the castle towers in gold. Yet the kingdom felt tense. Camilla's influence had grown, and the royal guard knew that the decisive moment had come. Captain Roland called his senior guards to a meeting in the castle's strategy room. "Camilla has reached the limits of patience," Roland said, spreading maps and reports across the table. "Her control over assets and her secret alliances are a threat to the crown. We must act now, with strategy, evidence, and courage. Eldoria's safety depends on it." Tomas and the other guards nodded. They had spent weeks gathering proof of Camilla's actions, monitoring shipments, and observing her network. Now they were ready to confront her openly while protecting the kingdom's property and reputation. Meanwhile, Camilla was in her chambers, reviewing her own plans. She had retained subtle control over some key properties and resources, and her allies were ready to act if needed. She felt confident and clever, certain that her influence would secure her position. Yet she knew the royal guard would not be idle. She smiled faintly, aware that a confrontation was inevitable, and she was prepared to meet it. The council chamber was filled that morning. King Alaric sat at the head of the table, his face serious. Camilla entered gracefully, as usual, followed by her trusted aides. Captain Roland and the royal guard were present, standing with calm determination. The atmosphere was tense, charged with unspoken words and cautious glances. "Your Majesty," Roland began, "we are here to present evidence regarding Camilla's actions. She has taken control over assets and resources beyond her authority, and her secret alliances have extended her influence in ways that threaten the kingdom's safety. We request your judgment and action to restore the crown's rightful control." Camilla's eyes remained steady, but inside, her mind raced. She had anticipated this confrontation, yet the clarity and authority of the royal guard made it more serious than she had expected. She bowed slightly to the king. "Sire, I have acted with the kingdom's best interest in mind. Every action I have taken was meant to strengthen Eldoria and secure prosperity. If I have overstepped, I am willing to cooperate under your guidance." The king looked between the two sides. He had trusted Camilla, but now he understood the extent of her influence and the evidence presented by the royal guard. His expression hardened as he spoke. "Camilla, your ambition has exceeded the limits of your authority. You will return all remaining assets to the crown immediately. You are no longer permitted to make decisions regarding royal property or resources. The royal guard will oversee this process to ensure the kingdom's safety." Camilla's expression did not change. She bowed deeply, acknowledging the order, but inside, her mind planned her next moves. She would not be defeated easily. Yet she realized that open resistance would risk not only her position, but the kingdom itself. She had been careful until now, and she would continue to be careful, even under these restrictions. The royal guard began overseeing the return of assets. Camilla complied, handing over documents, keys, and access to properties. Every step was monitored, every action recorded. Citizens watched as the castle's operations were gradually restored. Under the direct supervision of the royal guard, the kingdom's property, once under Camilla's subtle control, was now returned to the rightful management of the crown. Despite this, Camilla's presence in the court remained influential. She had not lost her charm, intelligence, or ability to persuade. Many courtiers still admired her ideas and skills, though they understood that she could no longer act independently. She walked through the halls with calm dignity, acknowledging her reduced authority, but always calculating her next opportunity. Captain Roland remained vigilant. He knew that Camilla's ambition could still manifest in subtler ways. Her ability to influence others was undeniable, and her intelligence made her a potential threat if she were allowed unrestricted access to power. Roland assigned trusted guards to monitor her interactions and communications, ensuring that Eldoria's safety remained the top priority. As the days passed, Camilla adapted to her new position. She focused on diplomacy, advising the king on administrative matters without controlling assets directly. Her charm and skill continued to influence decisions, but the royal guard ensured that no secret manipulation could occur. Slowly, the kingdom regained stability. Markets reopened fully, estates were restored to proper management, and citizens began to feel a sense of normalcy once more. One afternoon, King Alaric summoned Camilla privately. The room was quiet, with only the faint sound of wind through the castle windows. "Camilla," the king said, "you are no longer in charge of the crown's property. That is clear, but your intelligence and skill are still valued. I hope you will serve Eldoria wisely and honorably." Without seeking personal gain over the kingdom's interest, Camilla bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I will serve Eldoria faithfully, as you command. My goal has always been to protect the kingdom and ensure its prosperity. I will act within the bounds you have set, and I hope to contribute positively in any way I can." The king nodded, feeling relief. The immediate danger to the kingdom had passed. Camilla's ambitions were contained, her influence monitored, and the royal guard had restored the rightful authority of the crown. Eldoria was no longer at risk of hidden manipulation or secret control over its assets. Outside the castle, citizens noticed the change. Markets were busy again, estates were properly managed, and the royal guard's presence reassured everyone. Camilla remained a figure of interest and respect, admired for her intelligence and daring. But the kingdom understood that ultimate authority rested with the king and the royal guard. Captain Roland addressed his team in the guardroom. "We have succeeded in restoring the crown's authority," he said. "Camilla's actions were clever, but our duty and vigilance ensured that Eldoria remained protected. Let this serve as a reminder that loyalty, courage, and unity will always safeguard the kingdom." Tomas, still young but proud, smiled. "Captain, we did it. Eldoria is safe." Roland nodded. "Yes, Tomas, but we must always remain vigilant. There will always be challenges, and the strength of the kingdom depends on the royal guard's dedication. Camilla's ambition may continue in subtle ways, but as long as we serve with wisdom, the kingdom will endure." Camilla, in her chambers that evening, reflected on her position. She had lost direct control over the crown's assets, yet she remained influential through her intelligence and diplomacy. She realized that ambition without patience and respect for rules could lead to confrontation, and she respected the royal guard's skill and determination, though her path had been curtailed. Camilla was far from defeated. She had learned a valuable lesson. Influence could be maintained without breaking the kingdom's laws, and ambition could be redirected toward positive contributions. She vowed to continue serving Eldoria wisely, while still cultivating her intelligence and strategic skills. In the weeks that followed, Eldoria returned to stability. The royal guard maintained oversight of the kingdom's assets, ensuring security and fairness. Camilla served the crown with renewed purpose, her cleverness now channeled through proper guidance and cooperation. Citizens regained confidence, markets thrived, and the kingdom's golden towers gleamed proudly once more. King Alaric held a council meeting to acknowledge the efforts of the royal guard. Your dedication has protected Eldoria and restored the kingdom's proper order, he said. Camilla has also shown that intelligence and skill can be valuable when guided by wisdom. Together, the kingdom can move forward in safety and prosperity. Camilla attended the meeting, bowing respectfully. She understood the limits now, yet her mind was already planning new ways to contribute positively. She realized that true influence came not from unchecked ambition, but from skill, patience, and cooperation with those who upheld the kingdom's laws. Captain Roland watched her quietly, recognizing her intelligence and potential. She has learned an important lesson, he thought. Ambition can be powerful, but loyalty and respect for the kingdom are stronger. Eldoria is safe, and the royal guard has fulfilled its duty. The sun set over Eldoria, casting golden light across the castle and city. Peace had returned, earned through courage, vigilance, and strategy. Camilla's ambition had been contained, the royal guard had protected the crown, and the kingdom looked forward to a future of stability and growth. Eldoria had faced a challenge unlike any other in its history, but it had emerged stronger. The people, the king, and the royal guard had learned that wisdom, courage, and careful vigilance could overcome even the cleverest schemes. Camilla, though limited in her authority, remained a respected figure. Her intelligence and daring now guided by the kingdom's rules and traditions. And so, the kingdom of Eldoria thrived once more. The golden towers reflected the sunlight, the rivers sparkled, and the citizens felt safe and confident. Camilla's story became a lesson in ambition, loyalty, and the importance of balancing cleverness with respect for the law. Eldoria had endured, and its future was secure.